For 15 years, I was a Pai de Santo in Vila Madalena, São Paulo, commanding spiritual entities most people don't know exist. My hands have drawn blood circles that open doorways between realms. My eyes tracked movements in dimensions rational minds dismiss. I knew every trick to enter homes undetected, slipping past wards and protection prayers. There was not a single home in São Paulo that could keep me out, not one, until I stood at Dona Carmen's doorway. Clients came to my basement terreiro not for comfort, but because I could do what others couldn't. I could enter spiritually sealed spaces that other practitioners would bounce off like birds hitting windows. That was my specialty. But what happened at Carmen's home wasn't a psychological trick. It was a collision between two very real spiritual forces, and for the first time, I was on the losing side. But I wasn't just losing a battle. I was about to face a force that would dismantle my entire reality. The job seemed routine. A well-dressed man wanted work done against his aunt, claiming she was poisoning his family over an inheritance. He wanted her silenced. Standard family conflict work. I quoted my price, he paid, and I began my preparation. I always started with spiritual reconnaissance, projecting my awareness to map the target's defenses. Most homes felt like open fields. Some had thin barriers, cobwebs placed by doubting priests. But when I projected toward Carmen's apartment, I felt nothing. It was like reaching toward a location that didn't exist on the spiritual map. That should have been my first warning. I went in person, posing as a neighborhood surveyor. Dona Carmen was unremarkable silver hair, warm eyes, kind smile. She invited me in for coffee. But I couldn't cross her threshold. My body simply stopped. It was like trying to walk through a wall that didn't exist. There was a presence guarding that doorway, an authority that made my spiritual entities recoil in terror. I felt them shrinking back, hiding from something they recognized. I left shaking. Back in my terreiro, I tried everything higher entities, greater sacrifices. Nothing worked. Her apartment remained a blank spot on my spiritual map. I should have stopped there, but my pride wouldn't let me see the trap closing around me. This became an obsession. My professional pride was shattered. I went back 3 more times. Different cover stories. Same result. The barrier was absolute, immovable like gravity. On my 4th visit, I stood across the street at 2 a.m, observing with my spiritual sight. That's when I saw it. Light. Not electric lamps, but a piercing, clean radiance emanating from her windows. Within that light, I sensed something alive, something that radiated authority and saw straight through my shadows. I switched to physical investigation. Carmen Silva, retired teacher, widowed, daily churchgoer. Ordinary by every measure, except ordinary people don't have spiritual fortresses. Neighbors called her kind and deeply religious, mentioning she spent hours praying. They said she believed her prayers created actual protection. I laughed. Religious faith was usually empty theater. But Carmen's wasn't. I managed to peer past her through the open door one afternoon. Every wall had a simple wooden crucifix. Her Bible was worn from reading. And that impossible clean light I'd seen from the street filled every corner. It was present, alive, watching. I felt powerless, not weak powerless. My strength was irrelevant against whatever protected this woman. I refunded my client's money, ignoring his threats. I didn't care. A crack had appeared in my certainty. Carmen had no secret techniques, only prayer. I had seen thousands of crucifixes in homes I'd successfully attacked. Why were hers different? The answer was staring me in the face, and it was terrifying. The answer would shatter me. The crucifix wasn't the power source. It was a marker of allegiance. There was someone alive in that home. Obsessed, I continued to watch her. I saw her pray with friends, her crucifix catching light differently. Even from across the street, I felt that repelling force. I tried again at 2 a.m. I brought everything stronger bindings, more powerful entities. I climbed the stairs, but halfway down the hallway the air became thick, viscous. My entities, who had never disobeyed, began to panic. 10 feet from her door, I hit a wall of impossibility, a presence so vast that my entities fled, severing our connections. I ran. Back in my terrero, I forced answers from my remaining spirits. They wouldn't speak his name directly, but they made me understand. The force protecting Carmem wasn't a spell. It was a person. Jesus. They were terrified of the actual, living Jesus. Carmem's faith wasn't cultural tradition. It was a real connection to him, and he was actively protecting her. Pride is vicious. I convinced myself I could find a loophole to prove this Jesus was just another force I could outmaneuver. I spent weeks preparing, calling on entities that frightened even me. I thought I was the hunter. I had no idea I was the prey. I approached Carmem's door with every ounce of will, forcing myself against the resistance until I stood right in front of number 32. I raised my hand to complete the binding. And then everything shattered, blinding, consuming light. And in that light, I saw him. Jesus stood between me and that door, actually present. His eyes met mine, and I saw myself as he saw me, broken, deceived, enslaved. The look in his eyes wasn't anger. It was deep, devastating grief. The entities screamed and fled, ripping away from me. I was alone in that hallway, seeing only him. He didn't speak with words, but I heard him in my spirit. Helena, this is not power. This is slavery, and I came to set you free. I deserved judgment, but what poured from him was overwhelming, unconditional love. I collapsed, sobbing. The terror dissolved into peace. I was being offered freedom. I drove home, knowing I would never practice witchcraft again. Once you've seen the sun, you can't be satisfied with candles. The next morning, I destroyed everything: my terrero, my tools, my contracts. It was agonizing, but I'd met someone stronger. On Sunday, I went to Carmem's church and confessed everything. Carmem was there. She held my hands and cried. She'd known someone was trying to harm her, and instead of cursing me, she'd prayed for my salvation. That's when I understood. It wasn't the crucifixes, it was relationship. Carmem's faith was a live connection to a person who protected her and pursued me. I've spent 5 years as an evangelist telling this story. Spiritual protection isn't about objects or rituals. It's about genuine relationship with Jesus. Carmem never knew the details of my attacks. She just prayed, and he protected her while pursuing me. The spiritual realm is real. When people like I used to become against you, the difference between living faith and religious performance is the difference between a fortress and an open door. Carmem's crosses were alive because her faith was alive. Make sure yours is too.